Today I'm going to be answering the top questions that I get about how on earth do I begin to homeschool a kindergartner. Some of the most frequently asked questions that I get are, how do I legally homeschool my child? What academic subjects should I even be covering in kindergarten? How long does it take to homeschool a kindergartner? Like how many hours in a day? And then the most common question is, what curriculum? There are so many choices out there. How do I begin to pick curriculum, and what do I personally recommend for homeschooling a kindergartner? How do I legally homeschool my child? So homeschool laws are regulated by state, so you actually need to find out what your state requires. Some states require a certain number of college credits from the parent who's going to be homeschooling. Other ones just require a high school diploma. Some states will require that you actually track your attendance, that you're doing school each day. Other ones require that you officially declare your intent to homeschool, and there's some paperwork. Some states require yearly testing, lots of different things. So in the show notes, I have a link where you can find out what your state requires. What academic subjects should I be covering in kindergarten? Some of this gets a little personal. For me, I think it's really important at this age that we focus on kids being outside, that they start really having an appetite for learning, really good literature, exposing them to good books and good words. So poetry, exposing them to beautiful things like art. But when it comes down to just the core subjects, really, if they're doing a little bit of math, they're doing a little bit of handwriting, they're doing some phonics and just kind of that beginning reading, that is more than enough when it comes to core subjects. Now, in our family, we homeschool with our whole family in mind, and so my kindergartner is brought into so much more than just 10 minutes of math, 10 minutes of phonics. And so I'm gonna actually show you that later when I show you all of the curriculum that we use, but just keep in mind that it's an invitation. And the beautiful thing about homeschooling is that you get to make it your own. So what is important to your family, and you can make that part of your kindergartner's day. What I also want to mention here is that things like history, geography, and really deep science concepts, don't try to fit those into your kindergartner's day at this point. There's so much time for that later, and you will just stress yourself out trying to fit in every subject at this age. How many hours a day does homeschool kindergarten take? I really wish I could just give you a solid answer on this one, but again, this is very personal. For us personally, as far as sit down, formal, we're going to work on a workbook together or something, it might be 30 minutes a day. If my child's really interested, maybe more like an hour. And some days, not at all. For kindergarten, I personally don't expect my child to come and sit at the table and do any formal lessons until closer to age 6. It really depends on the readiness of the child though. At this age, I view education as so much of what my child's doing during the day. So when they're helping me cook, I would consider that school. When they're collecting rocks and they're counting them, I would consider that school. When we're snuggled up and we're reading read-alouds, I would consider that school. But when it comes to sitting down and doing formal education, if I have to give you an answer, I'd say 30 minutes to an hour. What curriculum do you recommend for homeschool kindergarten? That is a loaded question. And one of the reasons is because it really depends on your educational philosophy, your homeschool style. So in the beginning of my homeschool journey, I really figured out that I needed to find out what I leaned towards when it came to different educational philosophies. You know, there's Charlotte Mason, there's traditional, there's Montessori, there's Waldorf, there's all these different educational philosophies. It really helps to figure out what your style is, and then from there, find curriculum that matches with your style. If you have no idea what you lean toward, we developed a homeschool style quiz that I'll put a link to in the description, and it will help you determine what your style is, and we will give you resources that kind of point in that direction. If you lean more a Charlotte Mason style, if you really enjoy good literature and beauty subjects like poetry and art, things like that, then you'll want to stick around and see the curriculum that I recommend. Before I get too deep into the nitty-gritty of the exact curriculum that I recommend and I use, I want to point out that I believe before age 6, there are some really, really important things to focus on with your children. I have a blog post called 5 Intentions of the Early Years, and I'll put it in the description, but it really just details these 5 things that I think we should focus on before we start introducing these formal curriculum and formal academics. The first one being a deep love for literature, and in this blog post I share all about my favorite books and how we establish that as part of our routine. Also, unstructured creative play. So for the kindergartner, you want to give them ample amount of time in their day for that creative play, often in nature. The third one is really just developing that ability to pay attention. So slowing down for them to listen to your words and follow directions. These are really important habits before you start introducing curriculum. Practical life skills, so bringing kids into the garden with you, bringing them into the kitchen, giving them daily chores, teaching them to follow through on these tasks. That is a really important part of what I think a kindergartner's education should be. And then exploration in the outdoors, so lots and lots of time in nature. And really that segues into one of the subjects that we do in our homeschool, which is nature study, that we bring our kindergartners into. So once they've tasted and they've seen the outdoors for many, many years, just that unstructured play, they're observing the bugs and the plants, then you bring them into really learning about that in a more formal setting. So now I'll get into the curriculum, and I'll start at the beginning of our day with what my 5-year-old does for school. So the first thing that he's involved in that I would consider part of our academics is morning time. And morning time is the time when all 4 of my children come together and we start with their morning menu. And it looks like this. They're loose sheets that go in this restaurant menu cover, and he writes his name here at the top. He writes that he's 5 years old, so he'll trace this 5. He'll circle how he feels. He will circle what he wants to do today and what he's going to wear, and the weather of the day, so he'll go and feel outside or look outside, or I'll let him know what the weather is and he'll circle that, and the season and the temperature. And then we will move on to the Wonder of Nature Early Years collection, and each week is a new letter. And first they shape it, so they use Play-Doh to shape the letter, and this is just a really gentle invitation to begin understanding, recognizing letters and forming letters. So he'll form it, and then on the next one, he will learn the formation, the proper formation, and he'll use a dry erase marker to trace the formation and make the letters. And then he'll find them. So this is letter recognition, uppercase and lowercase. And then he'll trace all of the letters. And so all week long, he's working on the same letter. We just go through the alphabet as a gentle invitation. We also have a new number collection coming out, which is a very similar format that I'll also put in his morning menu. I will link that resource in the description. So for morning time, we use our seasonal nature studies. Currently we're in spring. This is the teacher's manual, and each week comes with some student sheets that look like this. And so we go year round, and so for spring you're studying themes like seeds and sprouts, rainbows, and then gardening, and then moving into summer you're studying bees and the sun and marine mammals. And so all year round we're studying a different theme each week, and my kindergartner uses this and is involved with us during morning time when we're doing Treehouse Nature Study. And I'm just going to show you 1 week of Treehouse Nature Study and what my kindergartner would use in this study. So for example, on Seeds and Sprouts week, he would be singing along to this song by Elizabeth Mitchell, Little Seed. He might dance around and use some instruments and get his body moving. And then we would do this little hand rhyme called A Little Seed, and we would sing it together and do the hand motions. And then we would read a poem together. So this one's called The Little Plant, and we would read it, and I would ask him, do you have any questions about what it means? Are there any words that you don't understand? And we would talk through some of the vocabulary. I actually remember on this poem, he pretended to be a seed on the ground in a little ball, and then he burst out like he was growing. Specifically on this week, we planted a bean and we watched its growth over a week. And so this was a great hands-on opportunity for him to plant that bean and then to draw pictures each day of what it was doing and talk about the different parts of the bean. So we did anatomy of a seed. We learned a little bit about stages of germination. He watched a couple of YouTube videos about the stages and how beans sprout and how seeds sprout and how seeds travel, things like that. And so all of this time he's doing this alongside his siblings in the way that he can do it. So my older children are copying the poem, or they're illustrating the poem, maybe while he's just drawing a simple picture. We also do art study, and art study is something that all ages can be a part of, and I think is really, really special when they're young, because it's amazing the details that they can see in a painting and the questions that they have. And so we use Treehouse Nature Study's weekly art print and the picture study guide, and we ask questions like, does this picture remind you of anything you've read or seen before? And what questions would you ask the artist about this picture? So introducing the beauty things like songs and hymns and poetry and art is really, really valuable and special at this young age. The other thing that we do in morning time is we work through making a little notebook. And while my older children would be writing paragraphs about what they're learning about seeds and sprouts, on this particular week, my kindergartner hunted in our backyard for seeds, and we brought them in and we snapped a photo of all of them, and then we identified them and we wrote out what each group of seeds was. And then he also made this little notebook page and drew some pictures of seeds and taped some seeds in. He also drew the cutest picture of his jar with seeds in it. So that is just a simple way that we introduce some science, we introduce some writing, and really just some beauty and connection. Next, I'm going to be telling you guys everything that we use for language arts. Now, this seems like a lot because there's multiple books, but we only really use it for maybe 10 or 15 minutes a day. So they're really, really short lessons, and it's only when he's really interested in them until he's age 6. When he's age 6, we'll do a little bit more formal. The first one is called ABC Here Do. I love this one for preschool and kindergarten. It is so sweet and super effective. I love this for those young years, even preschool. So what we do is each day or each week, whatever you need for your child, you introduce one letter. So like for the letter A, like this little ant, they're remembering the ant, and then they're doing ah like the ant. Throw your hands in the air like you're scared. So they look at the ant, they do the hand motion, they make the sound, and it makes this beautiful connection in their mind. And so as they grow and they learn all of these letters, they get to the point where they can sound letters out, sound words out. So ka, ah, and ta, the turtle taps for T. And they feel so proud that they can read. So as it grows, the words get a little harder, and she has multiple books that you can get as your child grows. So this is something we might do for a couple of minutes a day, and my 3-year-old really likes to get involved with this too. The next resource that we use is Explode the Code. We use this from books 1 to 8, all in their early elementary years. It's simple and sweet, black and white illustrations. I have a whole curriculum review on this in detail. I'll stick that in the description. I'm just going to show you an example of one lesson in Explode the Code Book 1. If you're interested, I have a full review of this in the description. So each week we work on maybe one of these lessons, and we do a little bit each day. They're learning the letter A for ah. They're circling which one begins with that. They're circling the same. Then they're working on some writing. So I also consider this book help with handwriting. They're writing it, they're circling it, so there's some beginning reading, they're sounding it out. This actually has helped my children with spelling. So gas, and they write the word gas. And then they're circling what matches the picture. So they're just really simple illustrations. It goes through the different letter sounds. By the end, they're writing a whole list of the words that have that letter sound. And then you move on to the next. For handwriting, we love Learning Without Tears books. We start at my printing book when they're young, and we move through their books. We even use their books for cursive. So we might do 1 page of this a day, depending on my child's attention span, but it's just learning each letter, very simple. They write it, and then they write their favorite one, and we check if it was good. And so we go through the book a little bit at a time, and they're just learning their lowercase letters. Other books have uppercase letters, they have cursive, and as they go through the book, they're writing sentences, something to be really, really proud of. And I really like that over here it teaches you how to teach the letter. So I'll tell him the magic C, up like a helicopter, bump, back down, and turn. And so these books are really simple, and I'll make sure to put all of these resources in the description for you. For beginning reading, when they're starting to string words together, I have my child read 1 or 2 of these books a day to me. And so I really love the early readers from Dash Into Learning and also from Bob Books. And like I mentioned before, one of the most important things for a kindergartner is to give them lots and lots of time listening to really good books, either from mom, dad, or maybe an older sibling. In our family, I try to read to my younger kids, ages 3 and 5, for about an hour a day. We call this milk and coffee hour. And I make a cup of coffee and make them mugs of milk, and we sit somewhere cozy and I read from a big stack of books. Sometimes these books correlate with our nature studies, and other times they're just really good literature that I want to expose my children to. If you don't know where to start on how to get started with good books, I have a book list for you in the description called 100 Living Books for the Early Years. So some books that we may read: Goldilocks and the Three Bears, Little Bear's Friend, I love it. Frog and Toad is a favorite around here. Aesop's Fables, we normally do 1 of these a day, and I actually start having my 5-year-old practice telling back the story, since narration is a really big part of our education. So if he's interested, he'll tell back the story. This is a good one to start with narrations. The Giant Jam Sandwich, such a good read. And The Best Nest is on repeat here. So these are just some books, but if you need more recommendations, check out that list in the description. When it comes to math, I feel like there are so many opportunities in real life to teach a kindergartner math. So at this age, we focus a lot on those practical life things. When they're collecting rocks as they're on a nature walk, you can have them count by 2s. When they're cooking with you, you can teach them basic fractions. Or when they're cracking eggs, you can tell them about a dozen. There are so many life opportunities for math at this age. My kindergartner really loves math, and he wants to learn how to write the numbers and what it all means. And so we've done a little bit more. For that, I've used the back of our Handwriting Without Tears book actually has a number formation pages. And so we've done some of that. We also have a collection in our shop, the Wonder of Nature Early Years collection for numbers. And so it teaches you how to form the numbers. And we also have the same maths as we had for the letters. We have the number 1, and it goes all the way up to the number 10, doing things that are teaching them to write the number, but then also framing the number with the 10 frame, circling how many, marking it on a number line, learning 1 more and 1 less. So basic number work there with those. And then I also have just started introducing some more book work for math because he's so interested, and we've used Saxon first grade math for my son. There are a lot of really good math curriculums out there, and I have more of those that we've used and that we've loved in the description in the blog post all about how to homeschool kindergartner. I hope that all of that was helpful to you and that you don't get overwhelmed with all of the resources. Just try to remember that the kindergarten year is really a time for connection with you, with God, with nature, with really good books. It's a time to give your child an experience that they can start loving learning, and they can start learning how to learn. And so do it in a way that is life-giving to you and life-giving to them. If you're just getting started and you need a little bit more direction, I have a blog post called 7 Steps to Start. Homeschooling 101, 7 Steps to Start. I'll stick that in the description. I also have one that's more towards the heart called Dear New Homeschool Mom, if you're looking for a little bit of encouragement. And then if you want to see what this actually looks like with a kindergartner, the nitty gritty, we actually followed my little 5-year-old around and made a video for you called A Day in the Life of a Homeschool Kindergartner. So you want to check that video out too. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you loved this, if you need more content like this, and we'll see you next time.